a production of the New Jersey Courts.
When you came to the fourth floor, you could go right across the hall. The elevators faced the entrance to the courtroom, and attorneys and parties and public observers could come up to the fourth floor and walk right into the courtroom. My memory, and it could be wrong, was in those days you didn't have detectors, and I don't even think you had state police securing the premises during argument. And this was the courtroom where the Supreme Court sat from 1948 until the Justice Complex opened in 1982. And the bench was a little more straight than it is now as a legislative hearing room, with the chief in the middle and flanked by 3 justices on each side, the more senior closer to the chief and more junior at the ends. There was a podium in the middle and counsel table on both sides, but the distance seems about the same. And as you leave the courtroom, the public could go right to the elevators across the hall. The administrative office of the courts was down the corridor to the other side of the building from where the Appellate Division, later Chief Justice chambers, were located. So the courtroom is actually in the center of the building. And those 2 gray doors on the right are the doors to the conference room. Mm-hmm. As is the middle door, and you could go out. The court would come in and out through that middle door under the exit sign into the conference room.
This was the robing room.
Right.
I take it it's still there. The closets haven't changed. They're each individual.
And here's the
closet.
Supreme Court bench.
Yes.
This is how they came out into the court. And there's something special, there's something unique about a Supreme Court filing out in order of seniority through that middle door and taking their respective seats on the bench. It was a magnificent, I believe, mahogany table, and it stretched length by length from the fireplace towards the windows. And the justices, of course, would sit around the table to discuss the cases and the motions and the cert petitions. The magnificent mahogany conference table was taken apart and moved to Justice Garibaldi's chambers in Jersey City. And last time I was in Jersey City, when Judge Weffing had those chambers, the table was still there in the Jersey City Appellate Library. There were 2 Appellate Division courtrooms here on this floor, and all Appellate Division arguments in those days were in one of the 2 Appellate Division courtrooms here. It was years later that the Appellate Division expanded to recognize the needs and travel problems of attorneys and parties who wanted to participate in argument. So argument subsequently started in Newark, Hackensack, and Morristown, and later South Jersey. But when Judge Goldman, who was presiding judge for administration, the first presiding judge for administration, retired, I believe in 1971, 1971-72, when Chief Justice Hughes became Chief Justice in 1973, the two appellate division courtrooms and Judge Goldman's chambers, which were between the two appellate division courtrooms, were converted into Chief Justice Hughes's chambers. And they remained that way until Chief Justice Wilentz moved to Perth Amboy.
This was Chief Justice Hughes's chambers, his actual office. I remember his desk being right here, large desk. And I believe you entered from over here, that beyond the doors, his secretary's office. So when you came through, she would let you through this way. I remember we had a lot of furniture in this room, but
it was a little different, as I remember it, when Chief Justice Hughes was here. Chief Justice Wilentz reconfigured the room, but the suite was the same. The entranceway, the chief's chambers, and then where the clerks and library were situated. As I said again, and I know I'm repeating, before Chief Justice Hughes came here in '73, it was an appellate division courtroom on both sides of Judge Goldman's chambers, and this was the room in which Judge Goldman had his chambers. I know that Chief Justice Weintraub had chambers on the 16th floor of the Mutual Benefit Life Building at 520 Broad Street in Newark. I believe Chief Justice Vanderbilt had his chambers in the Hall of Records of the Essex County Complex in Newark. My recollection is that once this building opened, the Court of Errors and Appeals, which was the highest court of the state before the 1947 Constitution, sat here in the courtroom where the Supreme Court started to sit under the 47 Constitution in 1948. And in the courtroom when the Court of Errors and Appeals existed, there were two levels because of the number of members of the Court of Errors and Appeals. When the Supreme Court was constituted under the new Constitution, the courtroom was reconfigured as it is today and as it was while the court sat here in the Statehouse Annex with the 7 members on one bench.